Hey there, Boozemeisters, and welcome back to the Peach Pod After Dark. I am Jeff, and well, it's good that you're fine and I'm fine. I agree with you. It's great to be fine. And joining me on the other end of the internet is my cuz-host.
I'm Leslie, and sir, I have a plan. I can walk.
Mein Führer!
No, I will not do the Mein Führer part. Back to glasses because I can't see.
The Mein Führer part is half the point, but I get you.
Yeah.
All
Listen,
right.
I'm prepping for in the future when people are trying to get us canceled because we're too big, and then they want to select the one thing.
Oh, where you just shout Mein Führer? Yeah.
Yeah. But
That's
I
rough.
will do the rest of this with a cigarette in my mouth. I'm just kidding. I won't.
It would be difficult to hear you, I think, most of the time if you did that.
Indeed.
So this week we are doing the 1964 straight up fucking masterpiece, Doctor Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. It might be Stanley Kubrick's best movie, starring Peter Sellers, George C. Scott, Sterling Hayden, Peter Sellers, Keenan Wynn, Slim Pickens, James Earl Jones, and Peter Sellers.
Wow.
I mean, this movie has Peter Sellers in it like a Monty Python skit has Spam. I mean, he is all throughout this movie, and he's brilliant.
Yeah, I'm in love.
Yeah, and we are watching this in conjunction with Season 2, Episode 11, Leading from the Heart, for the dumbest reason possible, because there's a guy in a wheelchair in it.
I completely forgot.
That's really the only... Because, I mean, we got Cousin Bobby, and it's like, all right, well, what are you going to do with Cousin Bobby? Like, something about skiing, maybe, or something about stairs, and it's just like, okay, well, I think the only thing you can do is find a movie with a person in a wheelchair in it, and this couldn't be further from a Cousin Bobby guy in a wheelchair, Dr. Strangelove, wheeling around the war room.
But it's perfect in every way that
Yeah.
Leading from the Heart was not.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there's I don't know, maybe this movie is the opposite of Leading from the Heart, and that it's not even leading from the head. Like it's leading from like
the groin.
Well, it's leading from the groin. It's leading from
head.
The floppy wiener is what it's leading from. Our spelling connection is Keenan Wynn, who played Colonel Bat Guano. He was in an episode of The Love Boat, where presumably he had to answer to the Coca-Cola company.
You think I carry loose change in the battle? Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah, the problem is every time I'm going to laugh, it's going to make me want to cough. I don't want to laugh a lot in this movie. Yeah, I'm having a situation over here. Yeah, he... I guess here's something about this movie that I think is one of the things reasons why it works so fucking well, and it's that loose change thing. It's that every character in it is insane.
Yes.
But they don't know it. They're all acting in what they think is a completely rational way. Like, why would I have loose change? I'm not taking loose change into battle. That's a safety hazard.
Yeah.
And look, I don't know what you want me to... You want me to shoot this Coca-Cola machine and get you change? That's private property, son. Like, you can't do that. And the whole... So here's what happens in this movie for people who don't know. Brigadier General. Okay. So Brigadier General Jack D. Ripper, and the names in this movie are fucking great, has decided to authorize a nuclear strike on kind of all of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And then he cuts off communication to his base, so no one can reach him to get the recall code. And because part of the plan is for this specific operation, it's designed so that in case the command structure is taken out by a Soviet attack, that we would still be able to retaliate with nuclear weapons. So they give the launch order to someone who's not the president. And the launch order can't be countermanded without the special code, because part of the plan is all of the pilots switch to a special frequency, and that way they can't be tricked by commie infiltration, because the commie is devious, diabolical. The biggest threat can't possibly be outsmarted because they're so clever and devious.
Worse than what they just went through with the Nazis for some reason, but neither here nor there.
Much worse, much worse, because they have the nuclear bomb. I don't think it would have been great if the Nazis had the nuclear bomb. Although it wasn't super great that we had it either. So there's that.
No.
So they realize what's happened, and General Buck Turgidson goes into the war room to update President Merkin Muffley, which is just
Merkin Muffley.
I mean, it's fake pubes. Like, his name is fake pubes. It's what the fuck with this movie? It's so crazy. And as he realizes how screwed he is, President Merkin Muffley, he gets the Russian premier on the line and tries to coordinate with him on how to take down our boys. Because
you're sorry.
Of course I would call just to say hello. I like say hello. Could you turn the music down, Dimitri? That's the greatest, is that Dimitri is drunk and it seemingly at an orgy.
Nice.
And the only one in the movie, apparently, who can perform sexually is Dimitri. Because he's out there just laying pipe in the Soviet Union. And come to find out that the Soviet Union had put in place a doomsday device, which was set up to be the end-all deterrent to nuclear war, which is it would trigger automatically if the Soviet Union was attacked with nuclear weapons. And it could not be turned off. And they just hadn't told anybody about it yet, which is kind of the point of a deterrent, is to let other people know that you have it, but it was supposed to be announced the following Monday because the premier likes it. Yeah, he likes a big to-do. And now they're fucked. They Peter Sellers as Colonel Group Captain Lionel Mandrake is trying to get Brigadier General Jack D. Ripper to give him the recall code and to reverse this thing that he's done, but Ripper won't do it. And for the greatest reason possible, fluoridation. I mean, he's convinced that the commies are trying to mess with our precious bodily fluids through the introduction of fluoride into our water supply, which was a real thing. Like, fluoride in the water was a real thing. We had to do that when I was in grade school. We had to rinse with fluoride. It's supposed to be good for your teeth. I don't know whether it is or whether I've just been indoctrinated. It's hard to say.
I thought they just put it in our water now.
They probably do. But, I mean, it was a thing we had to, like, swish it around. It was almost like mouthwash. Yeah, I don't know. I remember doing it in third grade. I don't remember past that. But
making humans sterile would not be the worst outcome. I'm sorry. Have we not proven we can't be trusted?
I mean, this movie kind of proves it. And he's so convinced of this conspiracy theory that he is willing to end. He needs to take the Russians out because they're already taking us out from the inside. And he wants peace on earth and purity of essence. And he's never able to, like, Mandrake figures out the code after Jack D. Ripper kills himself and is able to get it to the war room, where there's just a constant argument happening, because they've let in the Russian ambassador, who Buck Turgidson does not trust because he's a Rusky, and he's in there taking pictures. He's going to see the big board.
I know.
And there's actual fighting that happens in the war room.
You can't fight. It's the war room.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room. And they recall all of the planes except for the one flown by Major King Kong, Slim Pickens. And they're just too good of soldiers. They were almost taken out by the Russian fighters, but they survived. They recalculated. They got below the Russian radar. They flew in, and they delivered their payload on not on their first two targets.
Yeah.
And it triggered the Doomsday device, and the entire world ended. But not before the people in the war room gave very serious consideration to how they would survive a post-nuclear apocalypse, which involved basically them and 10 times the number of women selected for their sexually pleasing nature.
Yep.
Because you have to, and obviously, in order for this to work, you have to get rid of the traditional idea of monogamy. For the men anyway.
Of course.
Yeah. And then the entire world explodes.
Thank God.
Yeah. So I don't know how to talk about this movie in ways that do it justice.
Right.
So this is the first time you'd seen it. So what was your impression of this movie? Like, what did you think it was going to be? And then, like, at what point did you realize it was a comedy? Or, like, did you know that going in? Or,
I'm going to start with before even watching it, because Dr. Strangelove, unfortunately, and many other people get confused with Doctor Strange.
Sure.
This is not a Marvel movie, which I thankfully knew before going into it. But yeah, I had no idea it was a comedy until I see Peter Sellers is in it, and I went, wait, he's a comedian.
Right.
I don't think he does anything. I'm sure he does some serious stuff. He plays everything seriously, which is why we love him. And I'm watching it, and I think I've said this before, but I'll say it again. It takes me about 30 minutes before my brain can relax into something new. Because that first 30 minutes, I am trying to figure out, what is this? What is it about? I have to know everything now so that I understand the rest of the film.
Right.
It's not a great way to watch things, but that's how my brain works.
Yeah. I think I saw this in college for the first time. Possibly in high school, but I think in college. And I most assuredly didn't get it all. Like, I got the ridiculousness of it. I got the stuff that was over the top. The conversation between Muffley and Dimitri, the one-sided telephone conversation, is so fucking funny. And just so ridiculous. And, Buck Turgidson's insistence on the sacrosanct nature of the war room and the big board, and not being able to fight in the war room and having a huge buffet spread.
Yes.
There, like, that's so preposterous. And like, the threat of nuclear war was so ever present, and could have been tripped by any number of things. And like we were right to be afraid of that.
Yes.
But like the commie fear was always silly.
Yes.
Like it was always kind of fundamentally stupid. That like we've just got to we have to be afraid of these guys now.
I mean, if you watch duck and cover videos, why did we ever think that
I
was
I
going to work?
I did duck and cover drills.
I know,
Like
and I'm
I did that in
still
grade school.
flabbergasted by that because,
Yeah. At the time I knew it was dumb. And I was like 10. I was like, what this is what's this desk gonna do? Like
yeah,
like I I barely thought it was worth doing a tornado drill. You know? Like
yeah. I got
I
to a
mean
point with that too. I was like, won't the winds just pick me up in position?
it could. It could. The one thing that I would say in favor, in defense of the tornado drill, was taking your hardback book and putting it over the back of your head and neck.
We
Because,
didn't get to use a book.
oh yeah, we did. We would hardback book on the back of the neck because shit flies around,
Well, yeah.
and at least that'll like protect the back of your head from something. Not like not a desk, but like if a piece of wood or glass or whatever that kind of thing. That at least made sense to me. The
Now I
rest
feel
of
like
it is
my teachers are
silly.
trying to kill me.
Well, I mean, not on purpose, but
I was a good
accidentally.
student. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'll tell you some moments that I started getting that it was silly because I texted you
Mm-hmm.
that I was watching it, and then I think maybe 30 or 45 minutes later, you were like, "You're awfully quiet. What's happening?"
Right.
Um, and again, I was intently watching it, like, "What is this?"
Right.
And I could tell that there was some silly stuff by like Kong putting the cowboy hat on instead of the helmet, and I went,
Sure.
well, that's about as American as it gets.
Uh huh.
And then the secretary being in a bathing suit, I was like, all right, that's also comical. But then once Turgidson started talking in the war room, I went, oh, okay, yeah, this is ridiculous, and it knows it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the like. For me, I think that you don't 100% know that this is a comedy until Ripper starts talking about fluoridation,
Yeah.
because everything up to that point is frighteningly plausible.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like the logic behind the situation that they've set up, if your frame of reference is the commies are out to get us and we'll stop at nothing, then everything that happens in the movie, like the development of the wing attack plan R and the ability for not the president to launch it, and the reason why they all switch off their radios so that they're not interfered with and not given fake orders from the outside world, and even the development of the doomsday device, it all follows from the same logic.
Yeah.
And I think that's this is all based off of a book that's not a comedy. It's a book, it's a
Yeah.
novel. And Kubrick like was adapting it as a straight piece and realized I can't. How do you do this straight
You don't.
without bumping into how absurd it all is?
Yeah.
And he realized you can't. You have to lean into the absurdity. And so you get to the point where it's like, okay, but why is this happening? Like all of these mechanisms make sense, but why is it happening? And then you get fluoridation. And you're like, what all of this because he thinks fluoride is a commie plot? And wait, when did you first come upon this idea? I first noticed it during the physical act of love. Like he is impotent. He
Yeah.
can't finish. So he doesn't avoid women, Mandrake, but he denies them his essence.
They sense my
Because
power.
and he only drinks rainwater and grain alcohol because he doesn't want his essence messed with. It has to be pure. And then you're like, this is unhinged. It's so crazy what we're watching here. And you can't talk. And then you start to go, I mean, Jack D. Ripper is pretty obvious of a gag name. But like all the other names are so like they're just ridiculous. Like Bat Guano. Like, okay, that guy's batshit crazy. King Kong. It's just
Motley.
Merc and Muffley, Doctor Strangelove himself, the name itself.
Yeah.
This is a movie about preverts.
Preverts.
It's just the whole thing is about preverts. And everyone involved in putting the world in this position is a sexual prevert.
Yep.
They either can't function sexually, or they're in an orgy while the world ends. Like, can't even bother to turn the music down.
Yeah.
Or on the, like, they have to take a call in the war room from their secretary who they're clearly having sex with. And, like, it's just, all of it is absurd.
Yeah.
And perverted.
It's crazy how, I know this was in 64, but that's still early 60s, and that's still bearing some influence from the 50s, which I feel like the 1950s was a modified Victorian era because there was such, I don't even know how to describe it. It just seemed like they were really trying to promote this pure way of life, and you only do these things. Look, we got a little wild there because we had 2 world wars and a Great Depression, but now everything is fine. You get married and then you have sex, but you have 2 separate beds because on TV we can't show people being in bed together. No, everything is immaculate. And you're covered, you're polite. It seemed like, which explains what happens in the 60s then. I mean, we keep seeing this happen throughout time. Any time there is, a sexually repressed era, then people go nuts. I mean, you see it in fashion right now. I mean, lingerie is okay in everyday wear, because we had the pandemic and people were stuck inside and only wanted to wear tracksuits. Fair, fine. And yeah, it's just
I'm saying that I mean, to your point that it's cyclical, I remember women wearing shirts that look like a bra but aren't a bra but are a bra in the early 90s. So, I mean, lingerie, it's a thing. It
goes in and out of fashion. And so we're clearly seeing that how the men have suffered from this sexually repressed time.
Well, and even the opening shot of the movie is sexual. It's the plane coming over the top and refueling the other plane.
Oh yeah.
Like that is a very clear phallic image that they use. And then when Ripper is launching the attack, he's got the big cigar. And sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, but sometimes it's a big old cock.
Yeah.
And that's, what we're talking about. Like it's just all of that stuff underlies what's going on in this movie, which is, it's not just that the entire situation is absurd. It's that the people that are in charge of it are whacked out of their minds and cannot be trusted, because even when the world is going to end, they're trying to work out a way where they can have 10 broads to themselves.
This feels like the the antithesis to Lysistrata. Do you know that play?
A little bit.
I mean,
That's where like they
it's
deny
basically
men.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
basically women's way to solve the problem of war is we're not going to have sex with you. And so
right.
it's dick joke after dick joke after dick joke. Like I can't
Uh
even
huh.
say it. It's too
You
many.
can't say dick joke 3 times in a row. What's wrong with you?
No, it's really hard. It becomes jick joke.
It's hard.
Which sounds
She said it was
vaguely
hard. One of the things that I thought is kind of interesting about this movie, beyond the preverts, is how it it dances back and forth between real and imagined conspiracies.
mhm.
Like the whole fluoridation conspiracy apparently was like a thing that people thought, like a real thing, that I just, when I watched it in the 90s, I thought, well, that's fucking silly. Like, what an absurd thing to think. But fluoridation did start in 1946, and how's that align for your commie plots?
Yeah.
You know? So like, and so many conspiracy theories are insane, but they
Yeah.
sound reasonable if the right person says them.
Yep.
And which is why we have a lot of the people believe in the things that they believe, now, or like, uh, you know, invermectin, or, um, you know, using
What it
injecting yourself with disinfectant to kill COVID, or
yeah.
shining ultraviolet lights on your face, or whatever, like crazy shit people believe, or pizza parlor pedophilia.
No, after what we've been through as a society, I used to enjoy a good conspiracy theory. I don't
Huh?
anymore.
I find it much harder to watch the X-Files than I used to.
Oh man.
Because I like, not the monster of the week scary stuff. I like that stuff is great. It
Yeah.
always really works. But I really like the mythology, the overarching arc of government and beyond government conspiracy to hide the existence of extraterrestrials. I thought that was all like, I loved that stuff. You just dig into the conspiracy theory
Yeah.
and no, that makes sense, and this thing and that thing. Like, that stuff is really fun. But then when you like see it in action, and you just go, oh god, this is dangerous and exhausting.
It's
Um,
not fun.
no, it's less fun in that circumstance. And in this movie, they've got all of that, like the false conspiracy of fluoridation, and the expansionist idea that like Russia is going to try to take over the world, and if we go down in a mine shaft and they go down in a mine shaft and they breed faster than us, then they're going to come out and take over the world. We cannot allow a mine shaft gap. And like, that's so fucking stupid. But like, from that logic frame of mind, okay, like, yes, I see why that is what you're worried about if you follow it through to the next conclusion.
But you also sound insane.
You completely sound insane, and also like someone who just really wants to fuck.
Yeah. I mean, the stuff they were arguing about in the end was, and again, for the humor of it, is supposed to seem this way. And yet people are going to watch it thinking, that seems perfectly logical to me. But it's so ridiculous and so beyond
Mm-hmm.
the point of like, none of you all have time to be making this. None of you all have
Right.
time for these arguments because it's about to go off and, oh, never mind, it's done.
Yeah, we're done. Boom. That's it.
You're dust.
Yeah.
Snap.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like, I lost my train of thought with the conspiracies. Oh, there's a real, actual conspiracy that happened. Like, it was a conspiracy of like Russia and the United States were conspiring with each other to
Yeah.
destroy the world. Like, while pretending that they didn't want to destroy the world, everything they were doing was leading to the brink of nuclear holocaust.
Yeah.
And it, like, this movie, it, it has to play it for jokes because there's no other way to land the what's really happening, which is like the tragic results of intended consequences. Like this is what they meant to have happen. And so of course that's what happened. It happened for the dumbest fucking reasons possible. But that's the point. Like it doesn't have to be that Russia invaded Ukraine. It could just be that one guy couldn't come one time.
Yeah.
And because of that, the Russians have been poisoning his bodily fluids with fluoride.
He couldn't just go to the doctor.
No, and because of the impurities that they were trying to put into him, he switches to rainwater and grain alcohol and refuses to finish. He doesn't avoid women, but I deny them my essence.
I deny them.
And to him, that is totally reasonable. And to poor Mandrake, he's like, I don't even know. How do I? Like the best he can do is, remember, Jack, when you said feed me and I fed you, Jack. Like I'm on your side. Like
yeah,
I gave you all the bullets you needed. Now just tell me what the recall code is. Yeah, no. Yeah, it is. I don't know. The whole thing is a masterpiece in absurdity that is all too frighteningly possible. And like that's.
I mean, I feel like there's a layer of reality to it as well because this is where, as much as I love art like this, that is clearly making fun of people in power, the people in power, one, either don't watch it or they watch it and don't see themselves because they have no self-awareness whatsoever.
Yeah.
And that kills me.
Yeah. Well, this is not a connection that anyone else is ever going to make, but I was just listening yesterday to 60 Songs That Explain the 90s, and it was the episode on Sabotage and the Beastie Boys. And he started out talking about what you assume are the Beastie Boys, but he's really talking about Warrant. Do you know the band Warrant?
No.
They were a hair metal band in the 80s. And they had two big hits. They had a hit called Heaven, and then they had a hit called Cherry Pie.
Oh.
And Cherry Pie.
Yeah.
And the thing with Cherry Pie is that they meant it as a send-up. It was supposed to be over the top. It's supposed to be ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be them taking the piss out of the entire idea of these hair metal bands and the women and the overly sexualized nature of all of it. And no one thought it was a joke.
Yeah.
Everyone just thought that these dudes were hornballs. And so they wore this song around their necks for the rest of their lives. As like, it's just like their biggest hit is this thing that no one got was a joke.
Yeah.
And the Beastie Boys were in danger of that happening too, because their first album, Fight for Your Right to Party, and Girls, and like all these songs, they almost disavowed them because they were like, not at first. At first they were like, we're making fun of these dopey ass frat boys who were just dicks to us in high school. And oh my God, look who showed up to the shows. It's the dopey ass frat boys who were like, yeah, you got to fight for your right to party, man. And so they leaned into it. Like they had a 20-foot hydraulic penis on stage as part of their stage act for the License to Ill tour. And after it was over, they were like, we kind of have to apologize for who we were and the things we did. Because like we were joking, but you didn't know it. And so we leaned into it. And now it makes it seem like we were always those guys. And that's not really who we are.
Yeah.
And so like when people don't get the joke, it really twists things on. It's the Archie Bunker thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like Archie Bunker was hilarious to people who understood that he was the butt of the joke.
Yeah.
And it was hilarious to the people who thought that Meathead was the butt of the joke.
Mm.
And like, so it really works as a piece of social commentary, just same way this does. Although I don't think there's anyone who can watch this movie and go, we should look into fluoridation. Because I also have not been able to come. And, I don't know that was happening quite so much.
Yeah.
But it is interesting when people don't get that it's satire.
Yeah, there are so many problems with that in art right now in general.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's hard to know sometimes. Like, should I be taking this seriously, or are you having a laugh?
Well, and again, the people that you want to be making fun of or are making fun of don't understand because they have no self-awareness, because they are so deluded by their own beliefs.
Yeah.
You can't reason with them.
Right. Yeah, when people don't know that they're ridiculous, it's a problem. I know I'm ridiculous. Like, that's the whole point.
Yes.
We're all ridiculous. We're all big dummies.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're just really funny about it, like this movie is.
Yeah.
All right. I think it's time for you to accept the challenge.
Oh my God.
And let's have some adventures in intimacy.
Yeah. Listeners, he just tried to throttle himself.
My hand that I can't control just tried to choke me.
So, oddly enough, it is more challenging to come up with intimacy to discuss in this movie than it was for the Muppets. Yes, Ember, I agree. So, I mean, obviously we get one scene where a woman is in a bikini. She is the secretary to Turgidson, and clearly kind of playing on the trope of secretaries sleeping with their bosses.
I mean, that's clearly what had just happened. Like, he was in the bathroom after they had sex.
Oh, I figured like many of the men in this, he hadn't been able to finish, and so she was just waiting around for when you get going again, I'll be here.
That's possible, but they were clearly not having a professional working relationship in that moment.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
But I don't know, oddly enough, I don't feel like there's a ton of intimacy in this to dissect. I feel like they could have played up the gay panic of it all more. Like, I don't know if that resonated for you, but I felt like on top of them being afraid of, having impure fluids, I think the whole sexual prevert thing involves, or at least it screams gay panic to me.
Sure.
And there were moments where Ripper and Mandrake were seated so close to each other, and I thought, oh man, maybe Ripper's afraid of being gay, and that's why.
I mean, that's possible. I mean, yeah, he couldn't, So there's a reason. It's either fluoridation or
I'm gay. I don't know which is worse. I feel like they could have played that up more, but it was 1964, so
right. And they were already playing up a lot of different things,
Yeah.
I mean, there is one fight, right? There's a fight in the war room.
Oh, yeah.
Where he's trying to plant the camera on the Russian ambassador, who had a camera on him. He was right. That's another conspiracy that was correct. He was in there taking pictures of the big board.
There's a lot of discussion of sexual activities and crazy names. So, of course, I mean, I would say an intimacy consultant is more handy in that state. But again, these were, I'm making huge assumptions here, but these were male adults in the 1960s. I have a feeling they had a blast and wanted to go further with stuff, with sexual innuendo. So you
I don't
know,
know. Can you go further than President Merkin Muffley?
I mean, we had a President Dick for a minute, so like,
No, that's
yeah,
true.
you
Better than a minute.
absolutely can. I kind of feel like Turgidson, because we would have known about Nixon. I mean, he was a politician at this time, so I feel like
Yep, former vice
Turgidson
president.
at one point kind of does a slight caricature of Nixon. I can't remember exactly when, but I picked up on it.
Yeah.
So the intimacy, there's not a lot in this.
Mm-hmm.
There's certainly a lot of discussion around it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they could have gone further, with
Yeah.
the gay panic of it all.
Yeah. I don't know if they needed to because this movie is perfect. You know what I mean? Like it's really
Sure.
fucking. You know what I mean? It's.
I think
I.
here's the thing. I think you can always, even if the story and how a lot of the acting is done is pretty perfect, I still think you can always play up action
Sure.
or choreography a
Mm-hmm.
bit more because
Yeah.
it fuels in telling the story. I mean, you could have you could have added to the sexual awkwardness or relationship between the secretary and Turgidson more.
Mm-hmm.
Like we only get a whiff of it, and that's pretty interesting considering Kubrick and how he treats women actors.
Right.
But
Yeah.
that's neither here nor there.
I do think the physicality of Turgidson is pretty amazing. Like George C.
Yeah.
Scott's performance in this movie is so big. Like
Oh,
he's he's wildly gesticulating.
it's
He's
great.
pretending to fly the plane. He's like he's leaning over the table. He's leaning back to take the phone call. Like
Yeah.
he's doing so much physical acting in in a movie that's very contained.
Uh huh.
You know, like I think I want to talk about that a little bit in what else,
Sure.
but his presence and he his line delivery is so like I'm not saying we wouldn't get our hair mussed. Like 20 million dead is our hair must. He's just so over the top, and his character is just preposterously military
Yeah.
that you can't. You're like, of course that's what he is, but that's why he's so fucking funny in this. And George C. Scott, that's Patton. You know,
Yeah.
like he's not a comedic actor, but god damn is he funny in this movie.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So let's go through Needle Drop Forest quickly because there
Yeah.
kind of is only one song to talk about, and it wasn't a needle drop; it was a bomb drop.
Yeah. Many bombs.
Yeah. Um, I was trying to find a like somebody that had written something about the specific choice of that song of "We'll Meet Again" as performed by Vera Lynn as the end of the movie, as the soundtrack to the end of all of civilization. And I didn't find anything, but it is such an odd counterpoint to what is happening in the movie. You know,
Yeah.
it
I loved
is
it.
it's joyous, it's happy, it's you know, we'll meet again some sunny day.
Don't
It's
know
fine.
how. Don't know when.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Even all of this, it'll be fine.
I like
And
too that it's one woman's voice,
mhm,
melodious, and it sounds like a bunch of not drunk, but it definitely sounds like just some guys at a bar joining in.
right, yeah, yeah. Well, maybe that would be better. let's let's have one sober woman in charge and a bunch of drunk guys around the outside.
Yeah.
That would be grain alcohol and rainwater.
Yeah. No, the song selection is pretty great and again just leans into the dark comedy of it
Yeah,
all. Like I mean, it's human nature to turn something tragic into a humorous thing. We
yeah.
do it all the time. Mark Twain talks about it. Um,
Hmm.
all humor is derived from human tragedy. Like, that's one of my favorite quotes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm trying to think of other incidences where they do silly things like this.
Well, I
But
guess the way that he wanted to end the movie was with a pie fight in the war room while the bombs dropped. But he backed off of it because it was a little too slapstick for the kind of movie it was. Like this was a satire, not a slapstick, and so having having a pie fight was a little bit like one step beyond.
would
But
have been a
there
little too Muppet.
a little bit, yeah, and there are like a whole bunch of pies on that table. Like you can see them back there. Like it's in the room. It's ready for when that happens. But he backed off of it, which I think is probably. I mean, I could see that being like a very obvious counterpoint to what's happening.
Yeah.
But I kind of think that the mine shaft gap conversation is much funnier.
Because at the end of the day, they're still only worried about getting laid.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole thing is focused on their rockets.
Yeah.
So I guess what else time? What else you got?
I just love Peter Sellers. That's it. I want to study
Peter
him.
Sellers
I want
in
to
Three
rewatch it.
Is yeah. I mean, that's one of the things I had on What Else Time is just like the amazingness of Peter Sellers, and he was actually supposed to also play the King Kong role, but he wasn't super confident that he could get the Texas accent right. So, and
wow.
I'm glad he didn't because Slim Pickens is so good in that,
Mm-hmm.
and apparently didn't know it was a comedy. Like he's just in there just playing it for reals. I mean, I think at the end you kind of with the cowboy hat, riding the bomb down, you kind of got to feel that's a little bit something. But Peter Sellers is so fucking good. Like
so
each
good.
of those characters,
he improvised it all.
I mean, they're all just so. Did he? I didn't know that.
I read somewhere, or no, I was watching one of those silly little TikTok videos, something about it. But if it's not true, if it's not all of it, I bet it's some of it. But apparently, he improvised a lot of his lines. Like Kubrick just let him go.
That doesn't sound very Kubrickian.
It doesn't. I feel
which is
like
why it's interesting those two together.
I feel like it probably ended up being, here are beats that I want you to hit. Mm. If you throw in other stuff, make it make sense.
Right. There was there's a scene where Turgidson slips and falls and comes right back up to his feet.
Yes.
That was not like he fell. Like he legit fell, and Kubrick left it in because like he just played it so well. Yeah. Like he just got back up right. Like, of course, that's what I meant to do.
That's what we do.
That's right. Yeah.
We fall, we get right back up.
That's right. We soldier on and we deliver our payload because we're that, our boys are that good.
Oh my God.
That they're going to bring about the end of the world. I do love that his facial expression after he does the airplane thing, where he realizes how, like he goes from pride in our boys' ability to get the job done to realizing what happens when they get the job done, and his whole face just it almost becomes rubber. Beautiful. Yeah, it's so funny. It's like, oh God, that's so great.
I've trained them too well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, again, the tragic results of intended consequences. Yeah. It's what you meant to have happen. Like it's all working too well.
Yeah.
The other what else thing that I think is fascinating about this movie, because of like the scope of it, is that it's basically 3 rooms and the outside of a building. Like everything that happens is either in Ripper's office, in the war room, in the plane, or just outside of the base. And it just bounces back and forth between those things, and it's so stark And I mean, the plane itself is cramped.
Uh-huh.
Like you really feel, but then like he goes down to the next level and you're like, I didn't realize how big this place was, even though it's so cramped.
Yeah.
Um, and then the war room itself is just a black room, a table, a big ring light, and the big board.
Big board.
And that's it. It's just a big black room. And all of the things that happen are so hemmed in
Yeah.
by these, like, just these three locations. So it takes this huge thing and makes it very tiny. But it doesn't feel small.
Yeah.
You know, like I didn't even notice it until after I finished the movie. I was like, wait a minute, how many sets were there? Like,
Not
it wasn't
many.
very much. Yeah.
I think it's worth noting the peace is our profession hilarity of it.
Everywhere to start the movie. Yeah.
And then as they're fighting, and I mean, it's still like the main focus, but all the fighting around it is so funny because this is how they think they're keeping the peace.
Yes. Yeah. And it's the preposterousness of keeping the peace with bigger guns is, it's how we get rid of bear attacks, get more bears.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, bear attack. I need a bear.
Yep.
Everybody needs a bear.
Everyone needs a bear.
So what is this the EST of for you?
Gosh. I mean, hold on. I want to be clever. I could say the driest of dark comedies about impotence. I could say the most subtle dick jokes. I'm gonna go with the driest because it's pretty dry. And again, it doubles as they're not getting off.
It's denying. The movie denies you its essence.
Exactly. I'm okay with that. Do not need or want Kubrick's essence anywhere near me.
It's a safe line to draw. I don't think you're in any Kubrickian cum danger at the moment.
Thank God.
Yeah. For me, I think this is the funniest movie about the end of the world I can imagine.
Yes.
There are other movies like what? I can't even remember. They're like Shaun of the Dead is pretty funny.
Oh yeah.
About the end of the world in sort of a very specific way.
Yeah.
But this is next level funny. Like it's next level smart. It's ballsy as fuck.
Indeed.
Like in the middle of like this came out not 18 months after the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Oh, like, wow.
Yeah, like they're shooting this movie in the year after the Cuban Missile Crisis, and it comes out in January of '64. It comes out like a week before the Beatles play the Ed Sullivan Show.
Wow.
Yeah,
this is why McCarthy comes after actors, because he doesn't like that we have humor.
Right. Yeah, and that you can't really come after the British, though.
Yeah.
So, but it's it's so like brave is such a stupid thing to say about a movie, but like to just go out there in 1964, right after the Cuban Missile Crisis, 2 months after Kennedy is assassinated.
Oh my God.
Call everyone involved in the nuclear arms race impotent and perverted, and point out the inherent ridiculousness of the path they're leading the world down. It's pretty ballsy.
It's my kind of art.
Yeah.
How about instead of brave, you say bold? Because it is a bold move.
It's very bold. Yeah. Yeah, it really is. I do like ballsiest because, of our essence.
Yes, true.
Yeah. Anything else?
Oh, gosh. No. Oh, you had thoughts? You had your
should have been more dogs.
Yeah, I would agree. Always should be. Except I don't want dogs to be hurt. And they definitely would have been hurt in this film.
You don't want to even think about it. I get it.
No.
Yeah.
No, definitely not.
I'm with you. Let all the men die, save the dogs.
Exactly. Always.
um, yeah, I don't have anything else either.
I think we did it.
I think we did do it. And you know what it is that we did? We once again proved my theory that everything comes back to in spelling.
Yes, we did.
Even Dr. Strangelove. So we agreed on a movie for next week, and I mean, I've seen this movie, so I guess we'll do it, and we'll see where we land. Yeah, next week, in conjunction with Down and Out of District in Beverly Hills, I suppose we're going to watch Down and Out in Beverly Hills.
All right. I've never seen this.
It's been a long time since I've seen it,
Shocker.
and it's a movie that Disney got a lot of shit for, as I recall.
Really?
Yeah, because it was released under one of the studios that Disney owned that released like more adult stuff.
Oh.
And like, so this movie is, I don't know. I remember people thinking it was like inappropriate or bawdy or something, you know, just like the humor was too adult for a Disney owned property. So I don't know. I guess we'll see if it is or if it isn't.
Sure thing.
So, but until then, Booze Meisters.
Cheers.
Cheers.